What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now Plus. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about Like a Dragon, Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii yet again. Such a long name, such a freaking long name. But a few months ago, we talked about the length of this game, and nothing's really changed there. In fact, I actually think they doubled down on that 30%. So back in, I believe, October, and I made a video on this channel, the talk was 1.3 to 1.5 times bigger than The Man Who Erased His Name, okay? So when you look at that game, you say 12 to 13 hours, you increase it by 30%, right? But back then, it was like 30 to 50%, somewhere in that range. Now, they've kind of doubled down on it's going to be 30%. However, that's not too much extra news. I mean, they kind of just doubled down on what they said a few months ago. I do want to talk about a quote or two that I found when talking about, like, why is it longer? Because I actually think it's quite refreshing to hear stuff like this. I mean, they almost talk about padding and how that's not what this is. So I do like to, I like to emphasize that in these videos. So basically, they talk about how the things that they put in the game kind of just expanded it. So things like the pizza delivery, things like the dating sim. Those are things that, again, are not necessarily padding. They're like features that kind of just got expanded. But they also literally say that they could have padded out the playtime even more by adding fetch quests or other time-sinking detours, but Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii is already big enough without any such tactics. The map is huge, there's a bunch of places to visit, and there are still features we haven't announced yet. The volume increased by itself. And that's the big one to me. You know, it's like a slightly different way of thinking about it because, you know, when I think about some of these bigger open world games, and I talked about even some of my favorite games have like these padding, these fluff parts to their game, right? Where you add them in and they are repetitive by nature or like by design. They're repetitive. They are like whether it's a fetch quest or whether it's kind of like a checklist type thing, which kind of is like the same thing, right? It's just like check off a box, and you can add those. You can add those to any game in the freaking planet, and you can add 5 to 10 hours. But are you adding quality 5 to 10 hours? And the answer, in my opinion, is like 99% of the time, no. So I do like to hear what they say here because it kind of is more natural, right? Like they're adding stuff, they're adding what they believe to be quality stuff, and then it kind of just speaks for itself. Or, I mean, we know how these games work, right? They do swap things out. Like you think about 7 with like the business management. I mean, I invested so much freaking time into that business management, and you know, that didn't come back for Infinite Wealth. They kind of swapped it with something else. So that's kind of like the system, right? Some things get enhanced from one of these games to the next, like they just get expanded upon, and they normally come out better because of it, but also like they could potentially come out longer because of it, right? And it's like, well, that's doing it, I think, for the sake of quality versus quantity, right? Like you are adding to it, but you're adding to it to improve upon what you already did. And so, yeah, and that's another thing, right? We always talk about, I think everybody is coming on the same page with this, with these type of games, or with Yakuza just in general. They are great at asset flipping, right? They take what we've already done and they just do it better than, I would say, almost anybody. Like people really give them, I think, some slack, and we like tolerate doing same things over from one game to the next, same locations, because I think there's heart to it, because there is improvements in the places there needs to be improvements, because it never truly feels like the exact same thing, right? There's always something kind of tweaked about it, but because they do it so fast, and because these games release so quickly, and because they're very like thoughtful tweaks, we like them because they actually are. It's not just we like them because, say, we like the company or we like the games. It's because they make the games good. Like the games are legitimately good because of it. So those are just all things that I like to hear. So, you know, again, doubling down on that 30% length, this game is probably going to be like 17, 18 hours long. And I assume to do everything, you're going to be pushing, you know, 25. You know, all of these games, even The Man Who Erased His Name, if you're going for everything, if you are maxing out the mini games and the side activities and all that jazz, you are adding considerable hours to the game. But, you know, and I like it. I like what they did with The Man Who Erased His Name because it definitely was more streamlined. I thought that was refreshing, especially to balance it, right? Because you had that, and then 4 months later, or even less, fast. Maybe 3 months later, you had infinite wealth, which was, okay, you spend 100 hours here, do all these things for 100 hours, right? It felt good. And honestly, I'm still almost coming down from it. It's a year later, yeah, but like I'm okay with this game. You know, if I spend 20 hours in this game and I do 65% of the stuff, I'm totally cool with that. So because I know one of the next couple years from now, you know, you're going to get another 80-hour game and it'll all balance out. So that's my thoughts on it. You let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.